Hello everyone, welcome to Broccoli Master YouTube channel. From the last few weeks, most of you commented to make a video on a Django Rest Framework. So finally I have prepared all the steps that is needed to learn the Django Rest Frameworks. So in this video, we will cover only the theoretical parts, and I understand that knowing the theoretical parts also plays one of the major roles while making the project. So based on this, we will learn only about the Django Rest Framework architecture. Like you will learn about the Django models, ViewSets, Serializers, and what is routers in the Django Rest Framework. So guys, just try to understand these steps. You will be more clear while we are going to make the project on the Django Rest Frameworks with the React.js. So without wasting your time, let's begin it. Let's first understand what is Django Rest Framework. So it is a powerful toolkit that helps you to build a application programming interface. It means that API, web API, by the using of Django. So what does this API actually do? So API helps to communicate with different multiple application. So for the better understanding of this API, let's understand from the figure what does actually the web API do. So let's understand this is our client side, and client want to get post or put delete operations. So first what it will do, first it send all the get post put delete operation to their web API, and through this API it provide the request to the server. Either this post is available on the server or not. If the post is available, then it gives again respond to the web API. Okay, and by the help of this API, it again returns to the client in a JSON, HTML or HTML format. And so in Django Rest Frameworks, mainly we used JSON formats. So what is JSON? JSON is actually means JavaScript object notation. Okay. Mainly we are using this JSON format because it is easy to integrate with the various platforms, including web app, mobile, and the server. So that we mostly prefer to use this JSON notation while developing our API. So for the better examples of it, so let's consider one example. Suppose you have a website. Okay, you have a website, and your all the data informations are stored in the DBMS. Okay, it means database. Okay, and you also want to fetch all the information that are available in the database to your mobile application. So for it, what do you do? So simply for it, you create one API. By the help of this API, you can communicate between the mobile application and the web website through a database server. So in Django Rest Framework, so while communicating with the APIs, we mostly used URLs. It means that routers to connect with the application. So further we will discuss more in detail about it. So for now, we just understand what is Django Rest Framework. It is a simple tool that helps to build a web application. So let me show how the JSON formats actually look like. So this is our JSON format. It is easy to read for a human being also, and as well as machine too. And it is similar to the Python dictionary that we have read on the Python sections. It works same like that. It have a key and a pair, just like the dictionary. So I hope you understand it why we use actually this Django Rest Frameworks. So now let's move on to the another topics. So now let's understand what is REST and the REST API and the API. We're listening it time to time. So let's understand what the difference between these all things. So first, REST refers to a representational state transfer, and it is just an architectural style, or it is a principle for designing the networks application. Okay, it means that it only show you how the architectural style should be arranged in a proper way for the communication between the web resources. And this REST use mainly the standard HTTP methods. It means that from these HTTP methods like get, post, put, and delete operations should be done to interact with their resources. And these REST are mainly accessible by the URLs. I already told you about this on the previous section. So for the better understanding of the REST, just you remember one thing, that REST is only focused on the how the web architecture should be organized and how different systems should be interact with each other. Okay, so it is only a theoretical concept, it is not a practical implementation, so don't worry about that. Okay, so now let's move on the application programming interface, that's called API. So API is a simple set of rules or protocols that allows to communicate with the different software application, and the API defines mainly the methods and the data formats that can be request and exchange the information with the server. Okay, so basically the main purpose of this API is to interact with the web services or library or even a hardware interface. It means that we are not using the API for the communication between the software and the and for the web. The API are also used in the purpose of the hardware interface. When we need to communicate with the web app to the hardware, then we also use this API. Okay, so just remember one thing, that the main purpose of this API is to communicate with the different software application. Either it is hardware, either it is mobile application, or either it is a web app. So now let's understand what is REST API actually. So we have understand the REST is actually the conceptual framework. It means that it is only a theoretical frameworks that follow the standard HTTP request methods. It means that put, post, delete, and get methods. Similarly, API is mainly used for the communication between the different software applications. And next is our RESTful API. It is the combination of REST and the API. So it is mainly work on the principle of REST, and it also follow the HTTP methods like get, post, put, and delete methods. And it get operates by using the URLs. It means that uniform resource locator. In the Django REST frameworks, we are using the URL as a routers. We are also called this as a routers. So we will also further understand about it. So don't worry about this. So this REST API are mainly focused on to build the web services to get the communication between the browser, the mobile applications, and servers over the web. It doesn't focus on the hardware side application. And this REST API mainly return the formats in the form of JSON or the XML that make easy to integrate with the different platforms. So mainly we prefer this JSON format because it is a very lightweight, and JSON is mainly written in the form of the text that is easy to read with the humans and also with the machines. So on the last, we can say that all the REST API is a API, but all the API is not a REST API, because this API covers a wide range of communication protocols and methods. But this REST API is only focused on the web API or the implementing of an API. So we can say that all the REST API are API, but all the API is not a web API or a REST API. Okay. So finally, from these sections, I hope you will understand about the difference between the REST API and the REST API. Now let's move on to another topics. So now let's talk about the serializer. What is serializer in the Django REST frameworks and why we are using this serializer? So actually the API does not know the Django models formats. So we need to convert these models into JSON formats. So for the conversion of these methods, the Django models format methods into a JSON formats or XML formats, we mainly use this serializer. So from the definition we can see here, it is mainly used to convert the complex data types such as Django models into a native Python data types. It means dictionary that can be then easily rendered into a JSON or XML formats. It means that I have already said you that the JSON format is similar to a Python dictionary types. So with the help of serializer, we are actually converting these Django models or complex data types into a JSON format or XML formats or any other formats that are understandable by the API. So there is a serializer also, and there is also a deserialization methods. So actually we are using this serializer to make the conversion of our Django models to understand by the API. So these are the internal parts. Okay, suppose we are rendering the data from the server side. Suppose we are rendering the data from the server side, then it will again comes into the views.py files, and from the views functions we are defining every functions that are we needed. So in the views function actually we deserialize it. It means that is again convert the JSON files into a Django model understandable files. So with the help of serializer, we convert our Django models format into a JSON formats. And again, if we want to store the data in our server, then what we do in the views function, we again deserialize this. so that it will again come into the Django model formats. So you don't worry about this concept. When we are doing the live project about it, then you will have a perfect understanding about it. For now, this video I am only showing the theoretical concept that are necessary before starting the real life project, and we will do the real life project based on the React and the Django Rest Framework API. Okay, so in the serializer part, there are mainly three types of serializers that we are mostly used in our Django Rest frameworks. So first is model serializer, and second is our serializer, and similar to third is our hyperlinked serializer. So let's first understand what is model serializers. So while making the API, we mostly use this model serializer. And the model serializer, what it do is simply create the serializer that deals with the Django models instance. It means that what we have created on the Django models, it only get direct serializer from the model sides, and it also helps to automatically generate the fields validators based on our models field. Okay, so simple we can say that model serializer is works or deal with direct with the Django model instance. It does not take customs serializers or manually to add the validations on it. It simply generate the fields and validators based on our models fields. So while we are making the project, we mostly prefer to use the model serializers, and it takes a lot of times for us. Okay, so let's take an examples. How does actually this model serializer looks like? Suppose this is our book serializers, and we are taking this serializer from our model serializer. Okay, and from this models we are going to take the ID, title, author, and publish date, and this is our input sections. We are giving the input to these serializers. After that, we are passing the book serializer in our book instance. It means that we are passing this instance into our book serializers. After that, we are printing these serializers. Then it will print the data like this, and this is our JSON format. It will return the ID, titles, and the author name, publish date, everything that we are printed here. So I hope you have understand about the model serializers and how can you use it. So now let's talk about a serializer. So serializer gives you full control over the serialization process, and it does not automatically generate the fields based on the models. That on the model serializers, it generates everything automatically, even though the fields. Okay, so in these serializers, it does not generate automatically fields based on our models, and it also does not tie with the our model. Okay, and when you require the complete control over the process, then we actually use this serialization method. So for the examples of it, let's understand here. We does not need the model serializer here. We simply make the model under this serializer directly. Here, this is a class model serializers, and this is our serializers, and we are defining each sections here manually. ID, title, author name, publish, everything we are defining it here manually. But in the model serializer, we are taking everything, the fields from our model. Okay, and we are also defining the validation here. And in this serializers, we are just defining two things: one the creations and one the updation. It means that we can also create and we can also update the things from it, but we have not defined the deletion operation, so that you cannot delete this data from there. So we have a full control of it. Either we need to only create the data, or only we need to get the data, or only we need to delete the data. Everything that you required, you can control yourself, everything that is needed here. So this is our deserialization methods. We are passing the data, just like titles. On titles, we are writing the mastering Django, and in similar in the authors, we have wrapped the Jen Smith, publish date, everything. And after the deserializations, it got saved and print all the data like this. Okay, so this is our output. So just simply take in your mind that just this serializer is used only when you need to control yourselves, everything. Only when you need to define the create operation, only you need to define the update operation or deletion operation or get put, whatever you need on that, you just have to manually control over this. But in model serializers, it have a default control. It means that it have already default value. You can get, put, delete, patch, everything that is needed there, it is given to you by the default. Okay, so that's the difference between these two things. So let's understand what is hyperlink model serializer. So it is mainly similar to the model serializer, but in the model serializer we are using the ID, but in this hyperlink serializer we are using the URL instead of the primary key. It means that the ID. Okay, and this is used when you want to represent the relations with the hyperlinks, not with the ID. So let's understand with the examples of it. Suppose these are taking data from the our model serializer, and this is very similar to the model serializer that will take the instance from the Django model operation. And in the model serializer we are using here ID, but in the hyperlink serializer instead of using ID we are using the URL, and it fetches the data by using their URL. So again we are taking the data to our serializer, and this is our printing serializer instance. So in the output sections we will get the data like this. They will not show the ID. Instead of ID it will show the link and the title, author, publish, everything similar to the model serializer, but instead of ID it is taking the URLs. So that's the difference between them. So finally we have read the three types of serializer here. One is model serializer. In model serializer it takes the instance of the model. Similar, there is a serializer. On the serializer sections we are custom define all the things. If you need to control over all the operation, then we mainly use this type of serializer. Similarly, on the last we have used the hyperlink serializer, and the work of this hyperlink serializer is very similar to the model serializer, but instead of taking the ID they are only taking the URLs on it. So that's the difference between them, and we will see the practical implementation directly with our project that we are going to make after this. So don't worry about that, you just understand what these all things are, because this is very necessary while we are making the project. That's why I only focus here on the theoretical concept. So now let's understand what is view set in Django Rest frameworks. So it is very similar to the views that we are defining on our Django project, and mainly we are using this view set for defining our view logical in a one class or in a one place. And with the help of views we are handling different actions like listening, retrieving the data, creating, updating, and deleting the resources. Every operation that we needed we are just defined on our view set, and view set also helps to combine this all operation in a single class. So in simpler terms we can say that view set is mainly used to do the logic in a certain place that can operate the different action like listening, retrieving, creating, and updating the data or the resources by combining these all things in our single classes. There are mainly three types of view set available. There is simple view sets, and second one is a model view set, and third one is a read only model view set. So let's talk manually about these all stuffs. So now let's talk about a view set. So in the serializers we have read that if you want to manually control over all the stuffs there, then we mostly use the serializer. Same in the view sets is also working on that concept. When you need to fully control over these actions or with your endpoints behave, then we mainly prefer the view set operation there. So in the view sets, no any implementations or actions can be taken by the default. So we need to define everything manually. What operation should we need it? So let's understand it from the examples. We have import our view sets from the REST frameworks, and after that we have also import our models serializer from the serializers, book serializers, and here we are defining our custom book view set. And these we are defining the function like that. On the query sets we are taking objects.alls. It means that it will fetch all the data that are available on our database, and it will returns in the form of the list. Similarly we are also taking the serialization from the book serializer and store these all book serializer on our serializer variable and give the response about this serializer.data. On the next steps we are also defining how we can retrieve the data, and third one it will create the data and save to the serializer first. Okay, so from these examples you have seen that we are defining everything as a list, or when we want to retrieve the data from our database, or when we want to create or save these all things to our serializers, then we all need to define it a manual way. So it is very similar to the serializer concept, but in the view sections we are just building up the logics how can our data should be views there or defining the functions. Okay, but in serializer we are building the serializer combinations, how can we serialize all about the data that we needed manually. So now let's talk about a model view set. So it is very similar to the model serializers. It is also taking all the things automatically. We don't need to define manually over it. Okay, it gives you the standard functions or actions, like you can list the data, retrieve the data, create, update, partial update, and destroy everything. It will give you automatically there. And in the Django REST frameworks, we are using model ViewSet mostly. And for defining it is also very simpler. Just like it will import our ViewSets, and from the models it will also import our book models, and from the serializer it import our serializer sections here. And here simply we need to define the book ViewSets, and it will take the all the stuff from our model instance. So it will define the model ViewSet here, and we are fetching all the data that are available on the model sets on our query set variables, and we are storing it here. Okay, and we are also taking the serializer class, so just define here, and it will automatically define you all the CRUD operations, just like create, read, update, delete. It can be done automatically there. So whatever you need the operation there, just like if you want to create data or read the data or only update, delete the data, then you can be done from there. You don't need to define manually, just like we are defining on the ViewSet. So in the industry or in our real life project, we are using the model ViewSet time to time. So in the read only ViewSets, we can provide the access only to read the data. We cannot allow it to create, update, or delete the resources that are available on our server. So we are using this operation mainly when we want only to read the resources, not to create any other resources, just like creation, updating, or deletion resources. For examples of it, we have import all the necessary library here. From it, we are taking the read only model ViewSets. From that, it will only read the data. We cannot delete and create the data overall there. So we can say that read only ViewSet is a limit operations that only list and retrieve the data. And mainly we are using this when we want to export the data without allowing any modification on our resources. I hope you have understand about these all stops. What is a model ViewSet and what is ViewSet and what is read only ViewSet. You have a clear cut understanding about these all things. Okay, now let's move on the URL section, or in the similar terms we can say that routers. So now let's talk about routers. What is routers and why we are using these routers in our Django REST framework? So in simple term we can say that it mainly used to route our ViewSets to our URLs, and while we are defining our URL patterns, we should manually define these all stops there. And it is mainly powerful when we are working with their ViewSets function. So in simple terms we can say that routers are used to define the path to our ViewSet functions. So with the help of these routers we are actually accessing our ViewSet function there. So router is mainly two types that we mostly use in our Django REST framework. First one is our default routers, and second one is our simple routers. So default router is mostly used in our Django REST frameworks, which automatically generates for the standard ViewSet actions, just like list, create, retrieve, update, and destroy action. And we are using these simple routers when you do not have to access the API root view. Okay, let's understand deeply about it. So let's talk about first default routers. What is default routers and why we are using these types of routers? So in the real life projects, mainly we are using these default routers while creating our API. So in the default routers, it creates automatically all our routes to connect with our ViewSet methods. For examples, we have imported our necessary library here, and this is our views functions. We are defining the URLs here. So for the defining it, we simply write the default routers and store these stops in our router variables. After that, we are registered this to our models and the book ViewSet functions here. And by defining these all stops, we can do all the CRUD operations. Just like we can also create, retrieve, update, and delete methods from it. So now let's talk about the default routers. So default routers are mainly used in our Django REST frameworks. In the real life practicals, we are mainly prefer to use the default routers, and here we don't need to define all the customs operation there. And by the use of this default routers, it automatically creates all the CRUD operations for our ViewSet methods. Just like we can operate all the CRUD operation in which it comes the create, retrieve data, update, delete, everything that is needed there, it comes under default operation. So let's first understand with the example of it, how can we going to define it. Simple, this is our views functions, and we are defining the URLs from here. And from the library, first we need to import the default routers, and after that we are storing this default routers into our router variables. After that we need to register this into our books. This is our models and this is our views functions. Okay, now by defining these stubs, the API URLs now automatically determined by these all routers there. And by the use of this default routers, we can automatically generate these all endpoints. Similarly, we can generate the get, post, put, pass, delete, everything that is we needed. The queued operations, all endpoints are generated automatically there. Now let's move on the simple routers. Okay, and if you don't need extra feature provided by the default routers like the API root view, then we can use simple routers. So first understand what is API root view. So in the default routers, so API root view is mainly considered by these stubs only. From this is our API root view, and in the simple routers it does not consider this API root view, but in the default routers we are accessing this default API root view. It automatically generates there, but in the simple routers it does not automatically create theirs. And this after root views, it also generates the slice in every slots, and in this API root views it automatically generates the slice in the default router view only, but in the simple routers it does not generate a slice. Okay, so that's only the difference between them. I hope you get understand about that, what is API root view. So we can only say the API root view, and after that everything is nearly same. So for defining the simple routes, we need to here define the simple routes, and it will generate like this, and it will functions like the simple route. And when we need to define default routers, then instead of writing a simple route here, we need to define default routers, but everything is similar to like that, so you don't need to take a headache upon that. So this is only just a simple overview of the Django REST frameworks, and this is only a theoretical concept. I want to know you before starting our main projects. So after watching this video, I hope you have a clear cut understanding about everything that we require there. So in the Django REST framework architecture, it means that DRF architecture, there comes mainly four things. One is a router. We need to define the routers, and after that we need to define the view set, and after that we also need to serialize all the things from our models, and last we need also to define the Django models. So these four steps we nearly needed in our Django REST framework. I hope this video will be helpful for you for the understanding of the simpler form that we are mainly used in our Django REST frameworks. So this is for today. Thanks for watching the video.